Alrighty, so at this stage, I'm a little premature because I wanted to fill in all these cubes, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 filled in, 6.5 if you want to call it that. And I can go about the next teaching stage or the next stage of this assignment by utilizing just these here. Eventually, I'm going to make another video with everything complete and kind of go through all the cast shadows. But this is about cast shadows. Now, there's two different types of cast shadows for this design and for this drawing. There's one where the form itself, the cuboid is on the ground plane, like this one, this one, this one, this one. And then there's another version where the cuboid is hovering above the ground plane, as you see in this one. So what I want you to do when you're starting to apply your cast shadows is I want you to try the simple ones first. For example, you want to just start putting these 2 in, or these 4 in first. The ones on the ground plane. There's another one there, but I haven't filled that in yet. And I'm going to show you this real quickly. So this is just a practice sheet that I have. And if you look at this here, this is a cast shadow. You can see this is the diagonal line of the light. And this is the angle of the shadow. The angle of the shadow can move. The angle of the light can move. But whatever you commit to, whichever one that you eventually commit to, you're going to work probably down here first. But the angle that you commit to is going to be the same angle throughout every single one of these. So you're going to have to do the slide technique to replicate that same angle. So if you have this angle right here, for example, you're going to have to use the slider. It's getting caught on the tape here, so I'm going to move it over here. So I'm just lining it up with an angle that exists there, and then you can slide it, and then you can put that angle on anywhere you like, but it has to be consistent. Every angle is going to be the same. Now, if you find yourself, I will say this, that once you layer multiple layers of these colored pencils on top of here, you can even see on the other side of my finger, it smears, right? Because my finger is going like this. What you want to do to prevent your drawing from getting smeared is you can lay down a piece of paper wherever you're not going to be working, and you can just tape the paper down here, and then that way you can slide pretty quickly. There's another method here too. I don't like showing this too much because I think everybody kind of jumps the gun and goes this approach too fast. But once you make your original angle, right, you can actually use this gridded ruler here to make the line. See these lines here? You can just line this up with an existing line that you have, and if it's perfect in line with it, a line that you put here is going to be parallel to it. That's a pretty quick way of doing something. So you'll see me using this quite often, and you can kind of see the little smudge, little green smudge here from my fingers. So I highly recommend, now that I use this, to use a piece of paper not only for taping and that, but you can also use it just for filling in areas or just working. You can tape off areas and use multiple pieces of paper so you don't smear this. And I highly recommend to do that. Do not. You put all this time and effort into something, you don't want to see it just kind of go away. So I'll refer back to this here and there. I'm just going to take this tape off and explain what I'm doing. So I assume everyone has watched the 2 videos of how to draw a floating, how to draw a cast shadow of a floating cube and how to draw a cast shadow of a stationary cube. The way I have my planes applied with value, this top plane here is the lightest, this is the second lightest, this is the third, this is the darkest. That means the light source is coming from this direction because this side is getting hit by light too. So what I'm going to do is I will, I'm going to use my brown pencil here. I'm just going to throw in an angle. And I feel like that should be my angle. And it's a random thing. But that angle that I just drew in is going to be the angle for everything, unless I make adjustments. And this is the time to make adjustments. Like if you don't like how big your shadow is. And the other thing here is I'm trying to line my ruler up right here with the sides of the paper. And so let me just kind of do that real fast. And I'm also trying to line it up at that corner there. What I'm going to do is from this corner, I'm going to draw a line straight out. Do you see where these two lines meet? That's the corner of my shadow, my cast shadow. The cast shadow will follow the contour of this line. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put another line here, and I have to slide over there in order to make it parallel too. The other drawing is more my experimental, so I'm not as accurate with that one, but this one I do not want to mess up. Okay. And I can slide up. Have my angle there. And I'm going to put an angle on the back corner. I might not use it. I don't have to use it, but I will show you how you can use it. And another thing I'm going to do here is, as I said, this line here is basically going to hit this line, and then it's going to go back in space. And I'll explain that in a second, but it has to be parallel to the existing line that I'm lining this up with right now. And I'm going to slide out to that point. There's that point there. I'm going to run it over to the far corner, which is right here. And then I'm going to bring it back. Now, because these are so big and cumbersome, I'm going to go back to this guy. I didn't ask anybody to erase these lines to the point where you can't see them anymore. You want to still use these lines, and you can see this line back there, the transparent line. That's good. I'm going to use that because I want to make a line parallel to it, just like so. Because this line goes behind the form, I don't care what it's going to look like because I can't see it. So this basically is the shadow. And when you apply the shadow in, and I'll fill this in now, you want to use the green. It's just labeled green, but it's a dark green pencil. There's another green that's lighter that looks like this, but you want this one. And I see a lot of students filling in the long way of the shape. It's going to be a little easier to fill it in the short way. And when you're filling this in, you don't want to make this very dark. You just want to do a nice, light, even tone, one layer. And that's it. That's the shadow. The reason why I'm using this different green is because when it goes on the white by itself, the white paper, it kind of has a desaturated green, and the white mixes in with its, and it looks a little different than the green that's on here because the yellow is the base here. So all this has kind of a yellow green to it. And I used this other green, which is a lighter green, which has a more yellow in it as well. And then when I just mix this all by itself, it's enough to differentiate the color so it appears to be shadow light. If it was too much like this, it would just look like an extension, or the form was not drawn well. Okay, so this I can apply to here and to here pretty quickly. Now, before I go on any further, this line right here that you see, if I wanted to extend or get a wider cast shadow here, say I want my cast shadow about that wide, I just wanted it wider for whatever purposes, I can angle this any way I want to. So I could angle it and make it wider, which part of me kind of wants to do. Or I could keep it as a perfect horizontal line. So what do I want to do? I don't know. I'm going to keep it as is for now. But if I were to make it wider, and I just need to show everybody this. This little point goes here. And then this would go in this direction. And then once it hits this, it would go back. So it's a little wider here. It's actually a little shorter on the other side. Because that would be on a diagonal, when I draw the floating cube, that would change as well. So I'll try to show you both once I get to that point. But for right now, this video is just about doing the simple forms first, and then I'll stop it and I'll make a new video about something else. So I decided to kind of keep this straight. And what I'm doing is I'm using my gridded ruler and I'm lining it up against the bottom of the paper. Oops. I like to use my brown pencil line. And now I need this line, and I got to slide over. I'm going to have to stand for this one. And I'm sliding over to here. And I might as well put these other lines in because I'm going to put this guy in and I'm going to put this guy in. They don't mean anything yet, but they will. All right. Eventually you won't even see this shadow because this one's going to hit this and some of it is going to overlap. But for now, I'm going to pretend that's not the case. And so I put this line in, and this line is here, and you can see where they intersect, which is right there, which is basically the same point as there. And then I'm going to bring it down. There's that line there. And this line, once it intersects this line here, it goes back behind the cuboid parallel to the line that I'm making it parallel to now, which is most of the other lines. And there it is. So I can fill that in. Now, do you see this form back there? There's a line that goes across here, but I have to find it. So I'm going to go back. Yeah, I'll grab this guy. Where's my, oh, there it is. So the transparent line is great because it's right here. And I can see where that back corner is. So all I have to do is get a straight line. I'm going to line it up with another straight line that I already have. Go straight out. And right here is where it meets. It's behind that cube, but I just put a dot there so I can see it. And now I'm going to put a line right here. All right. Now I'm going to fill this in, and there's something I'm going to show you here that is going to be helpful. So let me just fill this in. This takes 2 seconds. Again, don't press too hard. A lot of students think shadows are just generally dark. They are darker than the surface, one step darker than the value of the surface they are on. So if it's on a light surface, it's just one step darker. So if you look at my hand, the shadow of my hand is not as dark as opposed to the shadow of my hand on this ruler. So you can kind of see the shadow. Actually, you can see the shadow of the hand. I think you can pick that up. Maybe you can't because you're looking right above the shadow. You can kind of see the shadow of my hand, but the shadow of my hand is darker here and lighter here because the value of the surface is different values. All right, and that whole value lecture I just gave you is going to be applied here as well. And let me explain. So right now I'm going to draw, if you see this line here, right, it hits this cube and this line intersects the angle of the cube right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line straight up until it hits this diagonal line that I already drew in, because that's the angle of the sun or the light source. So I'm going to slide over there. I'm trying to make this perfectly vertical. I'm going to slide over here. There we go. And I'm going to draw a line straight up. I like to use my other orange or brown pencil there. And I drew a line straight up. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in using this dark green right on top, and I'm going to put the same application of value as I did on the ground plane in here. Meaning the same pressure. I didn't make it super dark. I just put one layer on, and you get the sense of a shadow, and that's it. The shadow shouldn't take over and be the main focal point. If it's really dark, it will. You won't be able to look at the cubes because you're going to look at the darkest thing on the drawing, which will be the shadow, and that shouldn't be the case. So the shadow, again, is one step darker. So you can see that this shadow is different than this shadow because I'm overlaying this on an existing value. And because these colored pencils, you can layer them and there's a transparency to them, so and you can kind of mix colors with them. That's kind of what I'm doing now. I just put a layer on top of what was already existing here, which was yellow and 2 layers of green. So now it's yellow, 2 layers of green, and this dark green. And that's where you get that value from. All right, so I finished these guys here. 3 of them are done. And then I have to go and figure this one out. You might, from this point of view, you might be wondering where this guy is. But just so you know, this row here, this guy's 3 rows in. So it's this one, the one that's missing, and then that one. So this one is far away. But what actually I just realized, I can finish that one now because it's adjacent to this guy here. So let me do that now. What I'm going to do is angle, put in the angle of the sun. I'm going to call it the sun, light source, whatever, it's all the same. And I believe it was this corner. Come on, I can't move. I think I moved and took it off. Yep. Always go back and double check. By flicking the tape, I flicked off the angle that I wanted. All right, so there's that. There's that. I hooked it by accident. And I don't have to put the back one in because I can just loop it around. So the back drawing doesn't really do much for me in this situation. In other situations, it may. Then I got to put my straight line in. This is actually hard because I have nothing, there isn't a straight line nearby, so I'm going to have to slide it up. And that told me where this point is, which is right there. And now I can slide out from here. Slide. And actually, I'm going to extend it out because even though the shadow would end here because there's a void there, but I need to figure out where it goes back. So I'm going to put that point here, and then I'm going to take this angle. I'm going to slide it up to that point. Did I hit it too hard? No. I'm going to slide it up to that point I just made and pull it in, and there you go. Okay, now I can put the shadow of this in, and the nice thing about the shadow, it's going to anchor this form where it belongs, because it doesn't look like, I don't know if this is floating on top of this or if it's back there. And once you put the shadow in, it answers that question for you. And just so you know, when I'm applying the shadow here, it's the same thing. I'm just putting a light, even tone here and here. And that's it. So that's the shadow. What was the other thing I was going to do? And that anchors the form. Now you know that is adjacent to it or touching the corner to corner. So that's great. The next thing I'll do is I'm going to make a video about the this guy, which is above, hovering above ground, and there's going to be a shadow about here, but the shadow might hit this form, and then there's also going to be a little shadow in the background, but that's just basically what's happening here. It's just going to happen here. Okay.
I'll do that soon.